Hello there, Ian here, and wonderful to be able to be with you once again. And I really hope that this message catches you happy, strong and healthy. Today, as we're recording this, Monday the 4th of May, this marks the start for many of us of a new chapter, as many of us are able to return to work. In Malaysia, certainly, employers, companies are now being able to open their doors and welcome their staff back. So certainly this marks a new chapter, and of course our thoughts are with those countries who are now, some of them, facing a peak in their infection rate from the COVID-19 virus. So our thoughts are with those countries. But here, certainly in Malaysia, it marks the start of a new phase. It's probably too early to call it the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps better described as the end of the beginning. We've gone through a period of lockdown and movement control orders, and now that is beginning to emerge, and I'm sure other countries in the region will begin to relax their lockdowns and movement control procedures in the next few weeks. So as we return to work, I've got one overarching principle and three sort of points or elements of encouragement. And the first principle is, of course, as we return to work and as movement is relaxed, please abide by the standard operating procedures laid down by the government and your company and the buildings inside which your offices are located. So please don't let's go to the other extreme. Let's not forget the social distancing practices that have been in place this far. Remember the Spanish flu, which was the last epidemic that the world faced on this scale. There were two major peaks when the world thought they had conquered the virus. Everybody was celebrating, and we forgot the sort of social distancing protocols, and there was another big spike. So first and foremost, abide by the standard procedures, and let's remember to be sensible. So three major points of encouragement for us as we go back into this new chapter. And the first two are in the form of numbers. The first is 92%. In the 1930s, the United States went into a period they called the Great Depression, when unemployment rates hit 25%. 1 in 4 working people had no job. As they came out of that in the years that followed, 92% of job creation came from mid-sector scale-up companies. It wasn't from startups, it wasn't from large corporations, it was those in the mid-sector that were able to scale effectively and sustainably. Those created the jobs. So in that mid-sector, if that is you, you are in effect the first responders for the economy. The first responders for our health and well-being, of course, are those amazing frontliners, and a big shout out to them wherever they are in the world. Full praise to those guys for working under some incredibly difficult conditions. But in terms of the economy, all the data points to first responders being in that mid-sector. So that's the first thing. 92% of job creation comes from you, those companies that are scaling up. The second point of encouragement comes from one of my favourite success stories in history and in engineering, and that is the Apollo space program. What has the Apollo space program got to do with you? Well, I reckon that there were a number of lessons that we learned from the Apollo space program. And all of the scientific and manufacturing lessons are with us today. We have the legacy of all those scientific breakthroughs, from rocketry and propulsion to trajectories to life support machines to precision manufacturing to computer software. All of those technologies were grown from or were inherited from the Apollo space programs. But there's one massive lesson that is huge and is almost staring us in the face all the time but gets overlooked. And that is this. When Neil Armstrong made that first step onto the moon, over 400,000 people had combined to land Apollo 11 on the moon. The lesson is the amazing power of focus. All of those people were essentially focused on one goal: get a man to the moon and bring him back safely before the decade is out. And that decade, of course, was the 1960s. And in July 1969, they made it. So what does it mean for you? As we go back to this new chapter, we have to be laser focused on the things that are going to make the most difference. All the things that we should be doing that we maybe didn't get round to, now is the stimulus, now is the time to look at making good on those should be doing types of things. The things on the periphery, it's a good time to reduce the emphasis on those and be laser focused on what we can do that is going to make the biggest impact today in this new chapter. Lastly, now is the time more than ever to be playing offensively, to be playing attack rather than defensively, or to be playing defense. Now, you might be in one of three phases. You might have been playing offensively all the way through this crisis period. You might have been playing defense, or you've been probably just waiting and seeing what happens. The wait and see and playing defensively were probably good for the first few weeks of the sort of lockdown and movement control that we had. Now is the time to be playing offense, to be out there looking for opportunities and making the biggest difference that you can. This is no time to lose your ambition. This is no time to lose your ambition. It's not a time to be silly. It's not a time to jump out of a building and believe you can fly. That's just being foolish. But it is no time to lose your ambition. Play offense, go out there and look for the biggest opportunities now. So I really hope that did make sense. Abide by the operating procedures. 92% of job growth comes from scale-up companies. 400,000 put Neil Armstrong on the moon. The amazing power of focus. Don't divert, get laser focused on what you're really good at and how that can make the biggest difference. And it's a time to be playing offense. I hope that did make sense. I wish you well in this new chapter, and I hope to see you again and to share with you again soon.